Welcome to the Real Boardloft. I'm Forman. We got Jake Sachs with us, and we are going to be talking about the Harley Ingleby HI4 made in Thunderbolt construction. We have a HI4 9.3 here, and this is in Thunderbolt black construction. If you want to check out the construction video that we did, you can check it out on this page, or a quick one on the Thunderbolt black is EPS epoxy construction, carbon T-stringer routed down into the board, flex strips on the deck made out of carbon. You've got torsion carbon strips on the bottom. You've got a fiberglass layup, and then that's all encapsulated in a carbon layup.
Full carbon layup. Yeah,
the black is their highest end construction, and in a board like this, or in a board like the Harley HI4, it gives you more spring out of the turns. It's like a lot more energy stores in the board and like pops out of the turns. It also makes the board more durable against breakage. Yeah. And it also makes the board a little bit lighter.
Kind of the most high performance of
exactly, yeah. So if you're looking like at high performance longboards, the black is the most high performance. They also make these boards in red construction. The red is the all fiberglass construction. It still has the carbon stringer, carbon flex strips and torsion strips, but all of the full length layers are fiberglass in the red. That's going to give you a little bit softer feel in the flex, a little bit easier to bend out the board. Even Harley will ride this board in the red construction in softer conditions, because in waves that don't have a lot of power, you're not going to have a lot of speed to create the bend in the board, you know, to really load the board up. So you want to have a little bit softer flex to get the board rebounding.
Get it going a little bit easier.
Out of the turns. Also, the red construction is really good for less aggressive surfers or lighter. Any lighter frame surfer is also going to really like the red as well. So talking about this board, the HI4, this board was developed, you know, basically Harley won both of his world titles on the HI4, which is his most performance-oriented longboard, like the narrowest, most rocker, thinnest, like really most chipped out longboard. The HI4 is his new competition longboard. They're starting to take the tour spots to places with more average waves, and they want more nose riding time. So less like shortboarding off the tail. You can still do it, but they want more tip time as well. And so all of the HI4s have a little bit wider nose, and they're also a little bit fuller dimensions and slightly flatter rocker. And so when you read it in the, like in the catalog or on the website, like, you know, and they say this board has like an 18-inch wide nose, like automatically you're like, oh wow, that's like a really big nose. Like it's going to be too big. Yeah. And you also wouldn't think that a 9.3 high performance longboard is actually going to even be high performance. Like you just sort of lose high performance at 9.1. Yeah.
You said high performance, and then we started looking at the board, and I was like, I'm really curious about this one, because it has characteristics of like your standard longboard and dimensions, the 9.3 and everything. But jumping on it, like it had all the characteristics of a high performance longboard, and just really fun. Like very, not too high performance to where you're just surfing it like a big shortboard.
Right.
But it had, I love that combination of being able to nose ride it a little bit longer, wider outline, and just being able to kind of throw some of the longboarding characteristics into something that's high performance. Puts it in better waves, puts it in a more broad range of conditions, and, and it really performed well.
I mean, typically like at my size and like high performance longboards, like, you know, typically like a 9.0 or a 9.1 for me, it like doesn't even start to work until it gets chest high. Yeah. And so like I've always thought of like the high performance longboards as being like better wave or bigger wave longboards, not like average wave longboards. But the thing that was really cool about this board is that you could actually surf it really aggressively in really average waves, like even to bordering on small waves. Yeah. And it's got enough area and planing and wave catching ability to catch like really, you know, like kind of gutless waves, and then generate a lot of speed on them and do like good turns and nose rides and everything else. You know, even like that session that we had at the lighthouse. Yeah. Like the bonus session that day, you know, it's like I mean, you could just basically pull in behind the peak and get barreled on the thing like no problem, you know?
Yeah, you got barreled on that one, and then just did like a big hack, cut back, and then another hit on the inside, and yeah, just really showed what that board could do on a somewhat big, like kind of whitewater
Right.
roll into ledgy barrel. And then previous to that session, we were riding kind of chest high, kind of ridgy, punchy surf, and the thing just lit up. It really did well. It would beat sections, and then when the section would kind of cave out, you could fit it into the pocket and really kind of pull a cutback or a hack, and then just get speed immediately out of the turn. So.
Yeah, you and James were having just an absolute blast on this thing. I put myself last in line on that session because I had already surfed it a bunch. But man, it's just super, super fun, like really neutral feel. Like there's really nothing edgy about it. It's just everything that you want to do, the board does.
Would do, yeah.
You know, with the exception of like bigger wave high performance longboarding, I had kind of given up like high performance longboarding in like average waves for a while now, probably like 15 years.
Yeah.
And riding this thing is just an absolute freaking riot in average or challenging waves. Like remember the Groms that we were hanging out with at the lighthouse?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, you know, it was good for longboards, but it wasn't really good for shortboards, you know? And that's because like this thing could beat the current, it could track down the peak, and it could like connect the flat spots and have have it be really, really fun. So the, talking about the fin setup on these boards, Harley works with FCS to make, he has like his own Harley Ingleby quad set. He's got his own Harley Ingleby thruster set, and then which is like a kind of like a closer in size 2+1. Looking, if you want to look at the side profile of this, it's a little bit bigger center
almost
fin.
your standard thruster with a little bit bigger center
Correct,
fin,
like a bigger center fin.
Yeah.
And then they also sell this center fin by itself. In talking with Harley about this board, basically this board, he rides it a lot as a thruster because it's going to just make the board the board has so much speed. It's just going to make it a little bit more pivoty and easier to like kind of crank turns on. Yeah. You could put the thruster, the quad rears in it, and it's going to make the board even faster and then give it more hold in the barrel.
And if you were on a wave that was just racing sections and racing barrel sections, I think that quad would really light up because you'd just be able to drop in, set it on rail, and it would just go as fast as it possibly could.
Yeah, and the as far as like these fins, because some places you can get these fins and then other places you can't, and they kind of just used to float on their own, and like some shops would have them and other shops wouldn't. So I started talking with Harley about that. Now that like all of these Thunderbolts are taking off, like the fins like are in demand, you know, and his quad set is basically a Performer extra large front and a Performer large trailer.
Okay.
And then you have his center fin, which is its own fin, and then also the quad fronts and his 2+1 fronts are the same fronts. So did you follow that?
Yeah,
so basically it's the same fronts.
You can build the set.
Yeah, and so you could get like this setup, and then anywhere in the world you could get Performer large quad trailers and then add that. It doesn't necessarily have to be the Harley Ingleby.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously if you can get them, but in a jam you could add those in. Something cool, like literally the very first time I surfed this board, I rolled up to the beach, like I had a base coat layer on it. It was in a board bag, like surf was good. I'm like frothing, but I didn't have the fins in it, And so typically you're like, okay, it's gonna take me a few minutes like to put the fins in. But the thing that's cool is it's got the Connect rear fin.
Nice.
So like this was in the car, and then the side fins are in the car, and it's like you take the board out, like whack, put some top coat on the wax, and it was just. And they even put a marker on the board. This is where Harley rides his fin.
That's awesome.
There's a sticker that covers the exact spot. So, you're able to just go, okay, boom, and then with no guessing at all, this is where Harley rides.
And you're out there.
His fin.
I know how hard you froth too, so that.
Yeah, it just made it a lot easier. And the Connect setup is cool because anytime that you tighten the fin cluster, it's going to make the board looser and like kind of more pivoty and like maneuverable. And then anytime you widen the fin cluster or space it out, it's going to make it more stable at speed. So you can literally, on the beach or in shallow water, just pop that up, move it forward, pop it back down, and then the board's going to be looser. And then you could also do that same thing, move it back, and it's going to make it
fine-tune it to the waves.
Exactly, yeah.
That's awesome.
And you know, it doesn't matter how hard you hit the front of the fin, that it's not going to, but you know, take it out or move it.
Yep.
So I thought that was really cool. And then also knowing the backstory on the crossover with the performer fins, I think that's really helpful as well for people to know. So again, it's the Harley Ingleby HI4. This one is the world's most under-recognized, unknown high-performance longboard in a 9.3 maybe ever. It's absolutely awesome. This board itself is not for sale because I'm keeping it. And if you would like to get one of your own, you can give us a call at the shop, 252-987-6000, or you can look us up online, realwatersports.com/surfing. Thanks for tuning in.